get it. Oh, they just bust in with this joint. It will come, what that said? Oh. If you yourself don't release it, it will come for you. Get rid of, if it's the diamond that she gotta get rid of. It's too late. He's sitting up on there like they don't know you're in there. It's too late. It's too late for that. Snatcher. Yeah, look up. Homie gonna be looking at her in the face. That boy about 8 feet. The shoes gone. Oh! Look how he grabbing her leg. Oh man. Why you look like she didn't get it? Oh, she saved herself. Oh, she saved herself. It's gonna stop up the toilet and come back up. Homie almost had you. She's about to be dead, boy. It's too late. It's too late. Damn. Broke her up. Dang. I ain't see that one. That was nice. Number 2. You hear me? Almost got kidnapped.
I'm 24, and this happened 5 years ago when I was 19. I was conducting an online transaction on a site called Alks, which is similar to Craigslist. It's an online app where you can see items being sold by random strangers, and all you have to do is make a call and meet up.
Right.
I was looking for a cheap sweater for my trip to Japan the following week. After several minutes of scrolling, I came across an ad with exactly what I was looking for.
You got the sweater on.
A Korean-style female fur sweater for just 300 pesos, about $6. It was perfect. I had issue with it. The meetup point was at the LRT train station at 8 p.m. because the seller was too busy at work. I decided, what the heck? It's a public place anyway. I called the owner and we had a quick convo. He sounded like a strict guy, but I asked him when we could meet up. He responded, tonight at 8 p.m. sharp.
Oh, that boy
I said sure.
Look. He and the dog look like he up to
this recklessness of mine is what I regret the most. I arrived at the meeting place at 7:58 p.m. It was really empty, and I was sure I was the only person in the station. It was a cold night in November, and I eagerly awaited warming myself with my coat. Honestly, I'm the kind of girl who's comfortable wearing a sweater even when it's hot. I was sitting on a bench when the clock ticked 8 o'clock, when suddenly someone covered half of my face with a scarf with a really strange scent. I fell unconscious.
Yeah, that's a wrap. You chloroform.
As I woke up, I found myself in a van with 4 guys, my wrists handcuffed behind my back.
Oh, they about to do you something.
I asked the man what they wanted and to please let me go. Tears began to fall from my eyes. But then, one of the guys touched my face and said, "It's our first time ever tasting a beautiful girl like you."
Tasting?
I kept on crying and shouted, "Please, I want to go home. Please."
Oh man, they're telling me they cannibal.
The guy next to me choked me, shouting that I needed to shut up. I tried to resist, but my eyes started to roll back in my head. He stopped, but it was taking a long time for me to catch my breath. I looked out the window and saw a checkpoint lane. For the first time in my life, I was so glad that the authorities had permission to check the van. But the guy next to me reached for a gun, a really big gun. Knowing this was my only chance, I found the strength to shout and cried out, "Officer, please help! They have a gun!" The two officers immediately grabbed their guns, one shooting at the tires, the other aiming for the man next to me. The officer shot him in the head. I never thought I'd witness such a thing in my life. One of the officers carried me out of the van, and I passed out moments later. I woke up the next day in a hospital bed. My parents were there, crying and asking me what happened. I told them the truth, that I was buying a sweater online. But I suddenly snapped. I cried and cried, saying, "Please help, please help." Since then, I've had to go to a psychiatrist to recover from mental instability and anxiety. And it should go without saying, but I never ever want to buy anything online.
I thought she said she went out that sweater, you hear me? After all that, you might well go pick up that sweater. Yeah, call that boy, call that boy back.
When I was about 9 years old, I was in my swimsuit, ready to go to swimming lessons.
Like about 3.
My brother and I had made a pillow fort, and it was still there from the night before. I had crawled underneath the coffee table, where a blanket went over it, blocking out the outside world. I have no idea why I stuck my foot outside of the blanket, but I did. A dark black sock crawled creepily towards my foot and slowly slid over it. The sock was cold, and I felt odd. I recognized the sock. It looked just like the one my mom had. I called out my mom's name and my brother's name, but there was no response, only silence.
Boy,
I walked to the window, but when I looked out, there was nothing out of the ordinary. I saw my cat staring at me with a weird look on her face. Then, I was horrified when I heard the shower running upstairs. My mom was still in the shower, and my dad was at work. I ran up the stairs to find my brother spinning on the chair in my parents' room. I asked him if he went downstairs, and he told me he had nothing to do with the situation. I told my mom what had happened, but she didn't believe me. She said that I was probably hallucinating and that it was just the cat. But I know what I saw, and the look on my cat's face is still fresh in my memory.
Why everybody like that? Something going on. Something going on, you hear me? My grandmother tried to kill me.
It was April of 2007, and my birthday was approaching. Most of my family had already told me the gifts I would receive, like a new Wii along with video games for it. My grandmother didn't tell me anything. Now, my grandmother had always been a strange woman. She wasn't very talkative, but I liked to hear the stories she told. They were creepy, but intriguing. She told me she was going to give me a book. She didn't show it to me, nor did she tell me what it was about.
Look at the parents.
Once my birthday rolled around, I was opening gifts from my loved ones. When I got to my grandmother's present, I opened it up and I saw a book with a pentagram carved into its front cover.
Wow.
I picked it up and thought nothing of it, because at the time, I didn't know what the shape was or what it meant. As soon as I grabbed it, though, everything went pitch black. When I woke up, my family was surrounding me, and my mom was scolding my grandmother about giving me the book. My grandmother looked at me, but her eyes were evil-looking. That night, when I went to bed, I was having a pretty good dream. But suddenly, something woke me up. I looked around and saw nothing. Then, suddenly, I saw a shadowy figure in the doorway looking at me. This wasn't a case of sleep paralysis because I was able to move, but that didn't comfort me because that meant it was real life.
Oh, I'm jelly bean.
The figure crept closer and closer to me.
Oh yeah, I'd have been cracking my
knuckles. When I looked closer at the figure, I saw gray hair and crooked teeth. That's when I knew it was my grandmother.
Granny, what are you
I screamed
doing?
and ran past her, but she grabbed me and tossed me back. I noticed she had something in her hand, but I couldn't tell what it was.
Granny
I
might have
saw one of my
chopped
toys that I had
you
gotten a few
up.
years ago, picked it up, and threw it at her. She fell to the ground, and I ran past her, telling my parents. My parents called the police, and they got there and arrested her.
Grams in that mud with a whole
The
knife.
thing she had in her hand was a knife, and she was planning on killing me. To this
Told
day,
you.
I wonder what would have happened if that toy wasn't lying there.
Grams about to
Keep me a ratchet like tennis. I'm with this shit like I'm Dennis. I started this shit on my business. Niggas